Starship. The name evokes images of a gleaming future among the stars. But the reality? Starship is an unmitigated failure. While many know it's struggling, the sheer scale of this failure often goes unrecognized. SpaceX has poured an estimated $10 billion into this project, yet Starship hasn't achieved a stable orbit, let alone delivered any meaningful payload. Contrast this with NASA's Saturn V, built with 1960s technology. It cost roughly $6.4 billion in today's money to develop and successfully send astronauts to the moon. For the money Musk has spent on a rocket that repeatedly fails, NASA achieved lunar missions decades ago. And the situation is only getting worse as recent revelations about its failures expose just how fundamentally flawed the Starship concept truly is. To understand the depth of the problem, let's look back at Flight 7 in mid-January. Like its predecessors, it failed. The upper stage disintegrated before reaching orbit with its dummy payload. Yes, the Super Heavy booster landed, but that's the easy part. The booster never leaves the atmosphere and carries far less kinetic energy than the upper stage, making its landing less challenging. Furthermore, this flight carried only a 20-ton dummy payload, a mere 13% of Starship's advertised capability. This meant less fuel, less weight, and less stress on the engines. Yet it still failed. So what went wrong on Flight 7? Excessive harmonic vibrations. These vibrations literally shook the rocket so violently that they ruptured fuel lines, sparking a massive fire that consumed the upper stage mid-flight. This happened even with the reduced stress from the low payload. What's worse is that this version of Starship already incorporated redesigned, supposedly strengthened fuel lines specifically intended to prevent this exact type of failure. The fix didn't work. Why couldn't the redesign prevent the failure? Because Starship has a fundamental thrust problem. Musk and his engineers significantly overestimated the power of their Raptor engines during the design phase. Musk himself has admitted Starship might only lift less than half its promised payload, and even that might be optimistic. This forces them into a desperate balancing act: slash weight wherever possible, making the rocket fragile, and push the engines to their absolute breaking point during launch. This combination of fragility, extreme heat, and violent vibrations is a guaranteed recipe for disaster. For the next attempt, Flight 8 in March, SpaceX tried again. They reinforced structural joints and added a more capable fire suppression system, but these additions added weight, forcing them to reduce the dummy payload even further, down to a paltry 8 tons, just 5% of the design goal. Despite these changes and the minuscule payload, the result was depressingly familiar. Another spectacular mid-flight explosion. At the time, the reason seemed obvious to many observers. SpaceX simply can't build Starship strong enough to withstand the necessary thrust, even for a fraction of its payload, without making it too heavy to be useful. This was speculation then, but now SpaceX's own explanation for the Flight 8 failure confirms it. Just before the planned 9th test flight, they revealed what happened. A flash event occurred in one of the upper stage's central Raptor engines. This flash, essentially an unintended explosion of propellant, caused the engine to fail catastrophically, taking out neighboring engines in a chain reaction. The rocket lost control, tumbled, and disintegrated. SpaceX stated the most probable root cause was identified as a hardware failure in that engine. What causes a flash? Fuel leaks igniting, incomplete propellant mixing, rapid pressure changes, or overheating, all potential consequences of building engines too light and fragile or pushing them far beyond their design limits. This admission is damning. It strongly suggests fuel leaks or overheating due to the engines being pushed too hard while being built too lightly. It confirms the speculation: the engines are being exerted beyond their natural limits and still aren't producing enough thrust. Starship is simultaneously too heavy for its engines and too fragile to handle the forces required. This isn't just a setback, it's a fatal catch-22 baked into the very design of Starship. The concept might have worked if the Raptor engines could produce the unrealistically high thrust Musk initially claimed, but they can't. So what's SpaceX's proposed solution to this fundamental impasse? An updated engine, the Raptor 3. They claim this new engine is simpler, 7% lighter, and boasts 21% more thrust than the current Raptor 2. Surely, this must be the answer, right? Well, no. Firstly, Musk has a history of overstating Raptor's capabilities, making that 21% more thrust claim highly dubious. Secondly, even if true, a 7% weight reduction and a 21% thrust increase are nowhere near enough to bridge the massive gap needed to make Starship's payload capacity actually useful or competitive. The numbers likely still don't add up. But what's truly concerning is how SpaceX achieved these supposed improvements. They modified the fuel flow to improve internal cooling, which they claim eliminates the need for external heat shields and even the fire suppression system on the engines. So naturally, they've decided to remove these critical safety components to save weight. This improved cooling, they suggest, also allows them to push the engine harder to get that extra 21% thrust. Let's recap the logic here. The current engines are failing due to being pushed too hard, likely causing fuel leak fires and overheating. Failures so consistent that no Starship has survived a full mission. The proposed solution is to remove the engine's heat shields and fire suppression systems. This decision alone is baffling, but to then plan on pushing these shieldless, unprotected engines 21% harder seems utterly moronic. Even giving SpaceX the benefit of the doubt, assuming Raptor 3 genuinely solves overheating, which is unlikely, and can be pushed 21% harder, it doesn't address the other causes of failure. More thrust means more vibration, more stress, higher risk of fuel leaks, incorrect fuel mixing, and unstable pressure. Any of these can still trigger a flash event. Without heat shields or fire suppression, such an event would likely be even more catastrophic, leading to an even faster, more explosive failure. In short, Raptor 3 looks less like a solution and more like doubling down on a flawed concept. It doesn't fix the fundamental problems plaguing Starship. Meanwhile, as of writing, Flight 9 is imminent. It still uses the older Raptor 2 engines and carries a 16-ton dummy payload. Given the history, another failure seems probable. Even the FAA has doubled the hazard area for this launch. But even if, by some miracle, Flight 9 achieves a soft landing, Starship is still light years away from being a successful operational rocket. It's unreliable, its actual payload capacity is tiny, significantly outperformed by SpaceX's own Falcon 9 in both cost and capability, and the entire development approach seems flawed. SpaceX appears trapped in a design catch-22 with no clear way out. Instead of sound engineering, they seem to be just throwing random modifications at the problem, hoping something sticks. This isn't pioneering, it's a potentially colossal waste of resources, arguably fueled more by ego than by sound engineering principles, squandering billions on a concept that seems fundamentally broken.